Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. This is sadly the last segment of today's show, but I promise it is a good one. We are going to be looking at the ESPN wide receiver rankings for fantasy football for 2024. I'm very excited about this list. We have a lot of young, talented wide receivers who, while I don't think are in our top 10, I hope to see break into the top 10, but I do feel that this top 10 is probably the best in terms of positions that I've seen. I think that it's very fair to the top wide receivers in the league. I don't think there are going to be many surprises, but overall, let's just jump right into it. Let's start out with number 1, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is a wide receiver who honestly elevates the team that he's in. I think that the Dallas Cowboys are very lucky to have a player of CeeDee Lamb's caliber, especially at the wide receiver position, because it honestly just gives them a player that Dak Prescott can rely upon in any situation. We saw it last year when they came out and were one of the league's best offenses for a very long time. Obviously, I don't really have any worries with CeeDee Lamb. Because of his ability not only to create contested catches out of nothing, but his health. I think that his health is very important. Been one of the healthiest receivers in the league, and I think that next year will be no different. I think that he well deserves this number 1 ranking in ESPN's rankings because of his ability to elevate his team, to run a myriad number of routes, one of the best route runners in the league. I just think that he will honestly help the Dallas Cowboys to the NFC East title, in my opinion. And also, I think that he'll have a much better playoffs than he did last year, just because of how versatile he is. But coming up next at number 2 is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is one of those options where you kind of have to look at him as a player rather than the team he's in, because the team he's in is very versatile as well. I think that the Miami Dolphins are everyone's favorite team when it comes to fantasy because of how many points these players can put up in terms of fantasy. I think that not only will you see Tyreek Hill produce so many points, but you will see guys like Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, even Tua put up a lot of fantasy points. And so I think that this ranking reflects the team that Tyreek Hill is in now. Honestly, if he was still with the Chiefs, I would say the same thing. I just feel that Tyreek Hill, while a very talented receiver, his overall status is elevated by the fact that he's in a team that also has a lot of fantasy breakout stars within it. So I think that he's deserving of the number 2 spot. I love Tyreek Hill. I love his pace, his speed, the agility he adds to the wide receiver position. Unlike any player that we've seen in the league in quite some time. But I'm just saying, be wary of the fact that he is on the Miami Dolphins, a team filled with a lot of fantasy stars. Coming up next at the number 3 position is Ja'Marr Chase. I love Ja'Marr Chase as a receiver. I think that, honestly, he's still, in my opinion, one of the more underrated receivers in the league, mainly because of the fact that Joe Burrow has had his number of injuries, and we really don't get to see that Joe Burrow-Ja'Marr Chase connection that comes in from LSU. But that being said, I still think Ja'Marr Chase is one of the most talented receivers in the league. When all is said and done, I could see him pushing CD for that number 1 spot at the end of the season. I think that Ja'Marr Chase, in a team where the wide receiver core is in question right now with T. Higgins, what's he going to do? I think that, Ja'Marr Chase, this is his opportunity to step up and be the guy that the Bengals need him to be. I think that he will continue to do that because of Joe Burrow coming back from injury. I think that the Bengals will benefit from that, and overall, Ja'Marr Chase is a well-deserved number 3. And number 4 is someone who I think that a lot of people could see at number 1 as well, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is a very talented wide receiver, but obviously I think this ranking reflects the fact that they have a new quarterback coming in. I think that whether it's Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, they're not going to be as willing to throw the ball as far downfield as Justin Jefferson wants, whereas someone like Kirk Cousins could have done that for him, and that was why he was generally viewed as the wide receiver one for the past couple of years. I think that overall, though, you can't underestimate Justin Jefferson just because of the new system that he's going to be under. I think that J.J. McCarthy is going to be a very adaptable quarterback. I think that he fits into Kevin O'Connell's system very well. Even Sam Darnold, as we saw last year when he was in some limited game time for San Fran, he fits in well, transitioning from the Kyle Shanahan system to the Kevin O'Connell system. So we'll definitely have to see who Kevin O'Connell names his quarterback to really see how Justin Jefferson gets affected in terms of fantasy. But overall, I still think he is a very deserving receiver, deserves to be in the top 10. At number 5, a receiver who I think has been inflated because of a deal that his quarterback signed this past offseason, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, in my opinion, is the best route runner in the league, mainly due to the fact that the Lions have now this depth in their skill positions that allows them to have more verbiage, allows Ben Johnson, who was willing to stay with them, create more opportunities for everyone in the system. But Amon-Ra is always Jared Goff's go-to number one receiver, and it's the reason why I think Jared Goff got that much money, is because Amon-Ra St. Brown relies on Jared Goff. Jared Goff relies on Amon-Ra St. Brown. That being said, I think the Lions' offense will get a little more versatile. I think that Ben Johnson will continue to get more creative because they rely on him so much to create opportunities for not only guys like St. Brown, but guys like Laporta, guys like Jameson Williams, who we'll get to see in a year where he's playing throughout the whole season, hopefully. So I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown is well deserved to be in the number 5 spot, mainly because of the new extension from Jared Goff, and mainly because I believe that Ben Johnson will want to get him as much opportunities as possible. At number 6, we have another Brown, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a very incredible wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, mainly because he wants to be with Jalen Hurts, and I feel like while last year was not a very good season for the Philadelphia Eagles, I do think that Jalen Hurts regressed. I think that's just a blip in the trend of Jalen Hurts' career. I think that Jalen Hurts will get back to the level we saw him 2 years ago when he was challenging the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I just think that A.J. Brown will have his own fantasy stats inflated because of that. Obviously, they still have Devontae Smith, who's a very reliable wide receiver. But at the end of the day, A.J. Brown is their number 1 guy, and he is very well deserving to be on this list. I think that Jalen Hurts is pleased to have him. I think that Jalen Hurts will want to go to him very often with the deep ball. I think that Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown is going to be one of the best deep ball connections in the game next year. So I'm very happy to see A.J. Brown on this list. And number 7 is a kind of our first surprise, but I think that this guy deserves it because of the surprise he was last year, and that is Puka Nacua. Obviously now above Cooper Kupp in the minds of ESPN writers and pundits, but I think it's well deserved because Cooper Kupp was injured for large parts of last year, and Puka Nacua was asked to elevate his game, 5th round wide receiver out of BYU, and he did just that. I think that Puka Nacua deserves all the plaudits, had a great year, voted to the Pro Bowl deservedly. I think that Matthew Stafford is going to look to him. I think that he's one of those receivers who's just reliable in terms of getting open. He's not the fastest, he's not the strongest receiver, but he just gets the job done, and he does it well every single week. I think that he deserves to be in the top 10. Honestly, I'm not as surprised as some people might be by this, but I think that he is one of the best receivers in the NFC West and the entire NFL. Coming in at number 8, I think that this guy, obviously getting his quarterback back this year, will see his numbers rise, and that is Garrett Wilson. We still haven't seen the Garrett Wilson to Aaron Rodgers connection. just yet. But I think that it will be one of the most versatile in the league. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is going to want to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible, and Garrett Wilson is the receiver that will help him do just that. He's a solid route runner. He's going to help Aaron Rodgers stay upright just by his ability to get open. He is the wide receiver one for the New York Jets, just elevates that skill position core above average. I think that Aaron Rodgers will be glad to have him next year, and so I think that he will definitely be a top 10 wide receiver now and at the end of the year. Coming in at number 9, I think this guy is honestly overrated in my opinion, because we don't really know what his team is, and that is Davante Adams with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that there are too many question marks surrounding Vegas right now, where I can't say that Davante Adams will have a reliable quarterback to throw him the ball. He's definitely one of the most talented receivers, always was reliable when he was with the Packers, but the Las Vegas Raiders are not the Packers. Antonio Pierce is not a coach who I expect to want to throw the ball often, as we saw last year. So I kind of feel like Davante Adams is the first person who I would say isn't necessarily as deserving as the others to be on this list, mainly due to the question marks surrounding his team. But to round out the top 10 is another one of those guys, Chris Olave. I think that Chris Olave is a stellar receiver. I think that him and Garrett Wilson coming out of Ohio State were two guys who I think that immediately adapted to the NFL. But Garrett Wilson has the benefit of Aaron Rodgers, whereas I don't know who Chris Olave will benefit from because of the Saints quarterback situation as well, very similar to the Raiders. And that is why, to round out this top 10, I feel like these two guys, well, yes, they're big names in the wide receiver market. I just don't think that they're going to be as effective. But that should just about do it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for today's show. As always, leave a tip or donation at the link gsmc.cloud, a question even, which I will answer at the beginning of next episode. That should just about do it. Thank you guys again for being such a great audience. It means the world to me starting out on this GSMC's Fantasy Sports Podcast. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next episode.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit.